You know the old saying, never judge a book by its cover? That's literally exactly what I'm doing today. I made a TikTok that performed really well, talking about books that I'm not going to read. Posted it here on YouTube. Did really good on here too. Really, one that people got really mad about is when I said I was not going to read the book Quicksilver because the cover is so ugly. Some people thought it was hilarious, totally got my vibe. Other people were like, how dare you not read a book just for the cover? Don't judge a book by its cover, queen, okay? Just try it. Besides the fact that MMC is a bully, okay, because I've heard that a lot about Quicksilver. Besides that, sometimes if a book's just ugly, I don't want to read it. Buy it, I don't want to read it. It makes me mad that it's ugly. And it's like all this time and money went into making this. And it's ugly. Yeah, we're going to talk about that today. There was this one comment that was like, oh, she must be lovely. And honestly, I think I still am, okay? I think I'm just too honest and some of y'all just don't like that. That's what I think this really is, okay? This whole piety of, I don't judge a book by its cover. You do, okay? The book cover is important. Don't come at me with that. I noticed this general trend, especially with like popular booktok, bookstagram, whatever, books being ugly, like having ugly covers. Like that is like a thing I have noticed. Preface, okay? Although I do fundamentally believe that book covers are important and I do judge books by their covers, and I'll just say it proudly, okay? I do want to notate, I do understand that the concept of something being ugly is sort of very subjective. Like, I get that, okay? Of course, this video is going to be just opinions. Book covers and trends of book covers evolve, and I think it's just an interesting subject to broach, okay? I'm not hating on authors particularly here. Actually, this has very little to do, if not at all, with the actual content of the book itself. And beauty is in the eye of the beholder, okay? So if you like these covers, I'm not shitting on you. At least, not totally. There's been lots of discourse online about how book covers have become kind of similar, and part of the reason why I feel like a lot of books have become really ugly is because they all look alike to me. Like when I walk into a bookstore, like I literally went to a Books A Million yesterday to pick up book 2 of the Ruby Dixon Minotaur series, this film, and tell me if you don't think these all look the same. Like, it's just, they don't stand out anymore next to each other. I don't know, like they all kind of look the same. And I got curious as to like why that was. What are publishing companies looking to do? Sell books, right? They're going to put on the cover what they think is going to sell. So that probably is the number one reason why we see a lot of repetition, is because they see if it worked for one book, they're just going to try to replicate that with the next. And to be honest, I didn't know a lot about how book covers were even established, who decided what the cover of a book would look like, and at least for traditional publishing, very general process that I found out. Now, of course, this can vary a lot, okay? Let's look something along the lines of this. 1, the editor passes off the brief to the creative director or art director, whoever's in charge of this particular publisher. The art director then chooses a designer for the team and passes it off to brief to them. The designer reads the brief, sometimes reads the full book, and gets to researching and making the first visuals. A number of meetings happen. Anywhere between 3 and 20 occur, where a lot of people give their opinion. These meetings are staffed by editorial teams, the heads of various departments, including marketing and sales, and a managing director. So it seems like to me a lot of people are involved with making sure that the covers of these books are appealing, and it's not just one person. Who is missing out of these 4? The author, right? Clearly the author doesn't have a whole lot of input into what goes in the cover if they are a traditionally published author. Certain publishers will try to take the author's input more than others, so there is some variation, but generally you have like these creative teams, you know, that make these covers. That really goes to show another reason why maybe a lot of covers are ugly, is because the author, of course, knows and understands their book better than anyone, right? They're the author. They would probably really be able to articulate a cover that really just shows and conveys what the meaning and message of that book is. And I think that is definitely shown in self-published books. A self-published author that I feel like just has fantastic book covers is Emma Ham. I did a whole video breaking down all of her Merman series, which is literally like a 6-star series for me. I'm obsessed with these books, and they are literally stunning. Like absolutely gorgeous. Emma Ham just has gorgeous covers in general, and she self-publishes most of her books. She literally just had her first trad published book recently, but I mean, stunning, and she has full creative control over it, which I think is a big plus of self-publishing. Overall trend we're seeing of the sameness and blobbiness in books, a lot of it has to do with the fact that trad publishing more so seeking trends, I would say, than trying to authentically, you know, show what that book really is. Traditional publishing can have lots of perks. I'm not saying it's always bad. A great example of this is the Ice Planet Barbarians series, which y'all know I'm a huge fan of. The original covers of those were pretty campy, pretty bad, I want to be honest, because Ruby was self-publishing them from my understanding. Her books got so popular and got picked up by a trad publisher, and now I would say the covers are a lot more aesthetically pleasing, right? Because a, you know, designer is designing them and such. And I actually personally think that the original IBB covers are actually kind of cunty. They're bad, but like in a camp way. I think probably the biggest sin that I see committed in the bookish world as far as ugly covers is the giant letters, the giant lettering, the typography. It's what really I've noticed a big trend in over the past, like, you know, few years that I never seen in my like earlier teen years. I grew up in my latter preteen and teen years reading 2000s like literature, okay? Great example of this ugly typography bullshit trend that's going on is the Twilight books, okay? So y'all know Twilight was absolutely the pinnacle of 2000s literature, okay? If you know, you know. If you were a white girl in the 2000s, hello, you knew Twilight, you've read it, you love it, okay? If you remember, they had this minimalistic cover. Like, it was like black background, one like central, like the apple, the flower, whatever, okay? A pretty, you know, small-ish size lettering of the title, right? That's what the Twilight books were. Because of the massive commercial success of Twilight, I remember seeing so many copycats of the Twilight like cover. Like, so many other authors were trying to kind of tap into this like kind of minimalistic vibe of a cover. Tell me why. This was literally taken yesterday. I go in Books A Million, they have re-released Twilight. All they've done, literally, like, it kept the same vibe somewhat, but they just made the typography humongous. That's what they did. They just made the letters huge. And it's like, why? Why would you do that? And giant lettering is like such a thing. It's such a thing now. So many books just have humongous letters. I tried to look this up. I couldn't find any one place where this exactly started. Pretty much the only explanation I was given when doing my research about this was just the concept of it needing to look good in a miniature form. And why is that? It's because when people are looking it up on Amazon, they're going to see this little miniature form of it on their phone, and they need it to look noticeable on a miniature form. This was said like over and over again in different articles and stuff I was reading. Over half of Americans buy books on Amazon, with majority of them looking up these books on their phones, on their mobile devices. The industry is approaching cover making because it is of utmost importance that the book look appealing in this miniature size. Never really even thought of that, to be honest, but it makes a lot of sense. Maybe that is why, you know, you're seeing blown up letters on everything. It's because they want it to be seen very visually in this tiny format on someone's phone. It's the first job of a book cover after gesturing at the content inside is to look great in a miniature. Effort all this time into wanting to make this book, wanting their book to be read. Like, I get it. So you want it to be noticed. I get, you know, wanting to appeal on the internet. Hello, I do that here, okay? Like, yeah, the thumbnail culture of just trying to make something clickable. I feel like this can become a very slippery slope. What can end up happening is you can fall down the lie of mass appeal. Get the idea of being appealing to like a broad audience and trying to just get everyone, you know, to click, everyone to look at what you're doing. Pursuit of trying to appeal to everyone, you can simultaneously appeal to absolutely no one. And that's what I think is happening with these ugly book covers, okay? Because in the pursuit of making these giant letters, huge neon backgrounds and all this stuff, you walk into a bookstore and it just looks like a pile of neon vomit all over the table. It's like nobody wants to look at it. It just, there's nothing about, because they all look the same and they're all bright and colorful and they all have giant letters. There's nothing about your book particularly that stands out. I don't want to pick out any of them. Even when I think about scrolling on my phone, you know, if I'm scrolling down like a list of multiple books and they all look the same, lots of times one that has characters on it, it's probably going to be the one that I tend to gravitate to. As characters, I just has something specific that'll catch my eye. Like, for example, for me, I love to see like plus size people. I love reading plus size romances. When I was at the bookstore yesterday, I noticed there was this like zombie rom-com book written by Olivia Dade, who historically is a very big plus size writer. And I immediately, that was the first one my eye went to in that whole shelf. And it was because it had a plus size woman, a visibly plus size woman at the front of the cover. That's why I noticed it. That's why it stuck out to me, because there was visually something there that was making a statement, making a decided choice to put a character of a specific, type on the front. That's what made me notice that. Not this weird, vague, colorful, big letters. Like, it's just too vague. When you try to target everyone, like I feel like a lot of these traditional publishers are doing, the message becomes so non-specific that no one feels the book or the product is speaking directly to them. Targeted message to like a niche audience, by contrast, creates a really strong and compelling value that attracts the most suitable people for that content, right? Like, the plus size book is a great example. That is targeted towards someone like me, and it worked. And lead into a broader conversation about ambiguity in book covers and how I think that's problematic. I briefly talked about this in my fourth wing video about how I really did not like Rebecca Yaros's racially ambiguous portrayal of Xaden, and then also her like insistence in panels and on public speaking platforms, how he isn't white, even though she did absolutely no work in the book to try to establish him as anything else, basically. And I feel like this ambiguity bullshit a lot of publishers do to try to appeal to the mass audience also is very much a cop-out and very pathetic. I love to see that visual representation. I think it's very important. It shows that the author is committed to truly portraying those characters accurate and well thought out way. Another great example, okay? But before I go any further, preface, I love both of these books. I think both of these authors are fantastic. I love both the books. It has nothing to do with the authors at all, because to be honest, again, not sure how much control they even had over the cover. So I read this book called Curvy Girl Summer, and she actually has 2 books in this series, and they are both like plus size black female leads, okay? And love this book, loved everything about it. 10 out of 10 recommend this cover, okay? So I think this is the perfect example of like a contemporary romance that has a awesome cover. Like, it is such a good cover. Look at this book and pick up so much about this book immediately. It's specific, it's clearly targeted to a certain audience, seeing the characters in an accurate way. Obviously, the character being curvy, you can see that. The character being a black female, you can see that immediately within 1 second of just looking at the book. I love that. And then on this side, let's talk about the book Vanishing Half. So The Vanishing Half was super popular in 2020, and I read it. Again, awesome book. It's about colorism, lots of deep subjects in this book, also about the black female experience, just in a different way. But I love this book, and this is no shame to the author at all, but I just want to smack over the head whoever decided to put this cover on it. The book is about colorism. Why do we not have representation of the characters on the front? Who decided that? Like, you would never really know just by looking at it. Instead, they go for this neon big lettering, trendiness that just, in my opinion, really takes away from like what the really important topic of this book is. Tell me, which ones of these would your eyes gravitate to? My eyes would gravitate toward the characters. Always, I'm going to gravitate to a book that has some representation, at least somewhat, of characters on the front. I just think it's very important. And honestly, I feel like this is kind of ugly. I just hate this. It just is. Of florals. Let's talk about the increase in excessive florals in books, because oh my god, the obsession especially with florals and floral stuff in books is crazy. And this is something, again, earlier younger me I hardly ever seen, like maybe a little. Now the florals have just went wild. I found an Vanity Fair article where they were talking about the increase in florals on book covers. At some point in the last few years, bookstores became flower shops. It happened the way overgrowth can take an unattended garden. Slowly at first, But then all at once, the dust jackets of new fiction was suddenly filled with floral print. Said, it's hard for a book to be minimal and memorable. I'm gonna be honest, I don't really agree with that. I don't agree that a book can't be minimal and memorable. I think you can make more of a statement now for having a minimal cover, because the bookstores are so covered in these ugly florals and neons to the point that having something minimal actually can stand out more now. I feel like what's been made infamous at this point is the iconic Blake Lively stuff with the grab your friends, get your florals stuff that happened with the It Ends With Us. Yeah, Colleen Hoover. We know we can't talk about florals on books without talking about Colleen Hoover. And part of me wonders if maybe the success of Colleen Hoover also there in the 2020 time period did not contribute to the massive increase in floral representation on books. I feel like the It Ends With Us stuff is a great example of how this like girlification of reading and books sometimes can turn very problematic. We've seen massive uproar and outrage over her trying to make that coloring book off of a book about domestic violence, even putting like girly florals and this very vague cover on a book about domestic violence. I don't know exactly how to feel about that. It's not inherently wrong, I would say. I feel like with putting that on there, I feel like we can have conversations about that, similar to how we have conversations about like girly cartoon covers with very explicit content inside. Be putting flowers and rainbows and everything on the front, and then the content of the book be so dark and heavy, and there's like nothing to let you know just by looking at it that's like what you're getting into. And it kind of feels like this weird way to just like sell more books, actually letting people know what you're really selling. And that goes back to what I was saying about the whole vagueness of everything and how annoying that is. Greatly respect books that just tell you like it is from the cover. I greatly respect that. It feels shallow, you know, like when you just put flowers and rainbows on everything, but then the inside is like a dark pit. It's like, really? Like, really? There was literally people who went to go see that movie because like they thought that like it was this girly chick flick. These floral covers are just the book representation of that. You could pick up a Colleen Hoover book just by looks and purely think it is just some like girly little good fun time. It's about domestic violence. So a little problematic, you know. It's not, again, not really the publisher's fault because they don't have to do that, obviously. But do I think it's kind of like, why? Like, why would you do that? So I just fundamentally believe have more representation visually on front of covers. I'll use some examples of book covers that I actually think are really, really good. All of the Kendra approved book covers, we're going to go through them and I'm going to explain why I think the book covers are really amazing. Tusk Love. This is a recent pickup that you can probably find in Your Books A Million or Barnes & Noble because I've seen it around quite a lot. I think this cover is absolutely beautiful. Yes, there is big lettering, but the big lettering is not like the whole focal point. The focal point's clearly the characters. The characters and the way they're illustrated, I think, is beautiful to the description of them in the book. Eye-catching. It's still colorful, but the colors are not so intense. It's just enough to catch the eye. I think it is just so gorgeous. 10 out of 10. The Katie Roberts Deal with a Demon series, their covers are literally stunning. Particularly the Dragon's Bride one. I can't even tell you how beautiful. The Kraken one is also pretty, but I'm just saying this dragon one, the representation of the characters and how they look is stunning. You can clearly kind of tell what you're getting by looking at this. Okay, there's the chain. He's a big lizard man standing over her. The lettering's there, you know, but it's not so much. That's not the focal point, okay? It's just gorgeous. It sort of reminds me of like a more modern take on a bodice ripper. And that's for both of them. So beautiful. I accidentally got abducted and trapped in a rom-com. This, again, lots of letters. I'm not mad at the lettering, but that's not the whole point, okay? And we have the representation of the characters and the alien and all of that. 10 out of 10, so good. Last but not least is the Spell Shop series by Sarah Beth Durst. I've talked about this on my channel quite a bit. I'm gonna make a video about both when I finish the second book. I'm trying to hold these. These don't have character representations on them, but I still think they're beautiful because the lettering is not annoying, okay? And these are very aesthetically community-based cottagecore type vibe books, and I think, again, you look at both of them, you can get a sense of what you're reading. It's very clear. Look at this. Look at this. Gorgeous. They're absolutely stunning books that just feel good to have on your shelf. They're beautiful, beautiful books. The point across about what you're reading very, very clearly. Okay, these are cottagecore, cozy, whimsical books. Can you look at that and tell? Of course you can. Of course you can. Look at them. You know, we will see the end of this neon glob big letters. I really do. I hope this will end soon. I hope that trend will end and die soon because I'm tired of it. You guys let me know down in the comments, what are your favorite book covers? Do you agree or disagree with me? How do you feel about book cover trends nowadays versus, you know, in the past? And yeah, I hope y'all have a fantastic day. Bye.